This episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind features a stand which is half laptop, half human, which has the ability to impregnate people, which then births into a weird little creature that rides around on motorcycles that assimilates itself into weird random objects. Get it? Got it? Good. Every once in a while, there's an episode of JoJo that just completely blows me away with how fucking insane it is, and this is definitely that episode right here. I think this is one of the most uncomfortable episodes that I've seen from the entire series, and it features one of the most, if not the most unique stand that I've seen from the entire show. So there's a brand new villain who goes by the name of Meloni, and he has this stand which is known as the Babyface. In the subs, they call it Baby Head, but you can clearly hear him saying Babyface, so again, it's really stupid that they always decide to do that. But the Babyface is one of the craziest stands that I have ever seen. It's a stand which allows its user to basically track anyone as long as they have a portion of their DNA. But in order for this to work, it's like you have to set up the most ridiculous domino combination that you've ever seen. This is like setting up a game of Mousetrap and finally seeing it play out. So basically, it's a stand that's very situational. So how does it work? So, Meloni is able to summon his stand, the Babyface, and he does so by going on the train and meeting this really bitchy woman who's super pissed off over the fact that the train has stopped and she's not getting any good service on the train. Meloni decides to sit down and he reveals his stand, which is basically this little laptop where he's able to get some information about this woman. Everything from her age, her physical health, and of course her blood type. He combines this with Bruno Bucciarati's blood, and then suddenly his laptop grows arms and legs, and it's not outright happening, but this thing basically rapes her. Now, of course, this doesn't really happen, but the overall imagery that it gives off is pretty fucking disturbing. And when she gets impregnated by this stand, she actually ends up giving birth to this weird creature, which is actually assimilated in her body. And this creature is able to sort of like destroy people at a cellular level. He can actually remove individual body parts from people, and it takes this like weird grid-like pattern where he sort of like destroys you with like these like cube-like powers. He does so to this woman, and now that he's actually been given physical form and he has Bruno Bucciarati's blood in him, he is now going to be attracted to that. And like a heat-seeking missile, it immediately is able to track down Bruno and his gang. That's the uniqueness of this stand. It is quite literally a tracking stand, but the way that you actually set it up, man, it's just really ridiculous. It's also a very powerful stand, which leads to a really great battle with Giorno Giovanna, which I honestly think is a long time coming, considering that he's effectively the main character of this series, and we honestly haven't seen him do all that much. Ever since they introduced Bruno and his gang, he's kind of been on the sidelines the entire time, so it was really refreshing to actually see him get a really epic battle in this episode, and it might be one of the craziest battles of the entire show. So let me try and break this down. So basically what's happened here is that Bruno and his gang have arrived at this hotel where they're going to get a brand new ride. In order to trick all of the assassins, Giorno decides to transform all of these cars into frogs, which then just jump off into various directions. This way they can sort of throw them off and get a brand new vehicle. However, it's not long before they're immediately tracked by the Babyface stand, which is just basically taking control of a motorcycle, and it arrives in front of Bruno Bucciarati and Giorno at first. Giorno is getting ready to actually tell Bruno that they're getting ready to get a new car when suddenly he is attacked by this stand. And even Bruno and Trish are actually attacked by the Babyface, where they're quite literally transformed into other objects, which is funny because in many senses, it's the exact opposite of Giorno Giovanna's stand, where Giorno can transform any object into a living creature, and the Babyface stand can transform a living creature into an inanimate object. This concept alone is honestly what I think kind of makes this episode, is you're watching both of these characters constantly try to outwit one another, and at first it looks like Giorno is just being completely defeated in this moment by having parts of his throat and eyeball completely destroyed by the power of the Babyface. And eventually he is able to overcome this when it's revealed that not only can he imbue inanimate objects with the power of life, but that can even include replacing body parts on his own. He replaces the chunk of his neck that's missing, the eye. It's just so fucking completely awesome, and even loses a hand in the process, which somehow makes it inside of Babyface, which then he uses his power to transform it into, of all things, a fucking piranha, which explodes out of this thing like a damn xenomorph. This might be one of the best endings I've seen to any episode of JoJo, and truly, again, showed why this has got to be one of the most creative series when it comes to fights. I couldn't predict anything that was going on here, and there were so many moments where I thought the episode was going to end right there, only for there to be another surprise altogether. It was fantastic, and I cannot praise it enough for its extreme creativity. So what's the rundown on this episode of JoJo? Like I said, this is just a perfect episode in my opinion. It exemplified everything that was great about JoJo. I have to be honest with you guys, the first half of the episode had me completely confused. I had no idea how this stand was actually working, and by the end of the episode, it actually did start to make sense. But the entire concept of being able to create a stand that can actually do this is pretty extreme, and it's one of the more powerful stands that we've actually seen from the series, and I don't know if there's any sort of glaring weakness for it, as the fact that it's actually like a remote-controlled stand. I wonder if this is actually going to have the ability to hurt Melanie, or if he's just going to be able to create more of these things. But in order to do that, he's going to have his stand, well, impregnate someone. And that alone makes it one of the most unique things from the series. Also, the fact that usually a lot of the times in the series, in order to actually see a stand, you have to be a stand user, and this woman clearly sees the baby face, so it's one of those unique stands in the series that can actually appear in front of regular people and have some sort of an effect. Melanie himself as a villain is also really fun. His overall attire makes him look kind of like a 1960s Batman TV show villain, but I love him. I love the fact that he just casually walks into this woman's car and then just starts like saying all this ridiculous shit, and she never calls for help at all. Like I said though, the entire darkness of the fact that she's impregnated is taken away from the fact that she truly isn't like raped by this thing. It is confirmed by herself, but how it was still able to do that with the scene of her getting pressed up against the glass just really gave it a very dark image. The actual design of Babyface and the thing that it gives birth to is actually kind of cool as well. It kind of reminds me of Koichi's stand, Echoes. In particular, the Act 3 version of it. It's just a more silver, spiky looking version, and the way that they actually animate its powers to move through objects looks really cool because everything just turns into like a bunch of cubes. Giorno Giovanna actually fighting in this episode again was also great, as he always has a trick up his sleeve, and the fact that he can basically replace body parts by just creating them really shows that, wow, this guy can practically be immortal if he wants to. What more can I say? This was another perfect episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind, an episode which continued to surprise and has a great cliffhanger ending. Like I said, one of the best to-be-continued screens that I've seen from JoJo. Just a weird piranha covered with fingers exploding out of a weird metallic robot creature. It's just so fucking insane, but it could only work in JoJo. I loved this episode. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts about it. You can tell me all of them in the comment section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Golden Wind. Thank you all for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down now, baby.